Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Igniting the Fire podcast, a work of the Piedmont Church of Christ under the Piedmont elders here in Piedmont, Alabama. We are so thankful for your attendance today. We hope that you'll enjoy this session on the third episode of our second season here doing this podcast. You can see it uploaded every first and third Fridays of the month. And so we're excited. I've enjoyed this series already. We've decided to have guests for the whole year, Lord willing, and so we're going to enjoy that. And we hope that this is an encouragement to you. And we're so thankful that you've joined us. A couple of reminders: you can find this podcast on Facebook and YouTube. You can also find it if I'm able to do it. I don't think last week I was able to upload the whole video, or the whole audio on Podbean. So you'll be able to find that. Encourage you to look at perhaps YouTube might be the best way. But tonight, or let me say something about this season. We've been looking at what does it mean to be. We've looked at what it means to be a faithful father, what it means to be a faithful husband. And tonight, or I say tonight, it's tonight for us, but whenever you're watching this, it is where we're going to go over the topic, what does it mean to be a faithful sibling? And so we're excited, we are encouraged, and we hope that you'll enjoy this session. Tonight, I think it is very fitting to have my sibling on this show today. This is Ryan Olson. I have him introduce himself. Let me just say a couple things about him. He is my only brother. He is the youngest in the family, but youngest does not mean weakest. He has a very, very intelligent biblical mind. I'll just say his age. He's 13, and appreciate him. And I know that he's going to provide us some very good information tonight. And as a young person, I'm reminded of what Paul told Timothy in 1 Timothy 4 and verse number 12, that be an example. Let no man despise your youth. And Ryan is that, absolutely. And so, Ryan, give us a little introduction about yourself, where you're from, and just a couple seconds.
Yeah, first I want to thank you for having me on the show. Well, I'm 13 years old. My name is Ryan Olson, 13 years old. I live in Harrisonville, Missouri. I was baptized in 2023, and I like playing sports. Yes, and I love studying God's Word. It's so good to me. It's so uplifting. It encouraged me, and yeah.
Right. Good. Yeah, absolutely it is. And yeah, Ryan plays basketball, and he likes doing that. So he is actually in the middle of a season right now, and so he's doing well. But tonight, let's kind of get right into our subject. Before we begin tonight, let me give you an illustration. I love illustrations. There's a Sunday school teacher. She was discussing the Ten Commandments with her 5 and 6-year-olds, and she was explaining the commandment, honor your father and mother, and she asked, is there a commandment that teaches us how to treat our brothers and sisters? And without missing a beat, one little boy said, he was the oldest of the family, he said, there sure is. You shall not kill. That's interesting there. It's just for fun. But think about the word sibling. It is found the words brother and sister occur 518 times in the Bible. You won't find the word sibling, though, but it doesn't mean that the Bible doesn't talk about it. Ryan, what are some siblings that come to your mind, maybe just in the Bible? Maybe just a couple of examples.
First, I think of Jacob and Esau, big sibling.
Mm-hmm.
All know the story. Esau was jealous. Right. I think Esau was jealous of his brother. He wanted to be like his brother. He was jealous of him. And another one, Mary and Martha.
Mary and Martha. Yeah, Esau. Well, he might not have been jealous, but remember, he wanted the birthright. Or no. Jacob wanted the birthright. Esau was, I guess, in a sense, jealous. Maybe later, because his brother stole it. Right, but no, absolutely, Jacob and Esau. So, Mary and Martha. You mentioned Mary and Martha, right? What about James and John? A lot of them, right? It would be good to, obviously study. So we're looking at what does it mean to be a faithful sibling. Now, God doesn't necessarily provide like a whole discourse on, how to treat your siblings, but he does through principles and things like that. I think we can learn. And so we'll look at some of these things tonight. Some are not privileged to have siblings. I was privileged, or I'm privileged, or both of us, I guess, are privileged to have three siblings. Ryan, since we're both the boys of the family, we have three, or two sisters and each a brother. But some are not. Some are single children. One sibling, maybe a sibling has died. But the importance, since people have siblings, the importance is that children should treat their siblings correctly. And right, I mean
Yeah.
that's just what God would have them to do. There was a proverb that reads this: "Brothers and sisters are as close as hands and feet." You're probably going to be as close to your sibling than any person growing up, and hopefully, and that probably is how it's growing up. As you get married, then obviously it will turn into marriage, and you'll be close to your spouse. But really, for about maybe what would you say? Maybe 10 to 15 years,
Yeah.
depending on when you were born, you'll be close to your sibling, right? And Ryan, how important do you think that is?
Very important because you kind of like you lean on each other.
Yep,
You go to each other when you need help. They
that's
encourage
right.
you. They uplift you. They yeah, they just uplift you. They encourage you, and yeah, you just lean on them. You just look
That's
towards
right.
them. Yeah. So I think sibling
Yeah, absolutely.
relationships,
Yeah.
yeah, they're important to have.
What'd you say?
Sibling relationships are
Absolutely.
important to
Yeah,
have. Yeah.
that's right. Absolutely. And so, yeah, God provides some illustrations. So let's look at some illustrations tonight. As we'll look at them, we'll kind of notice notice them as we think about them and things of that nature. Let's notice Exodus chapter 2. We're not going to be able to read all these passages, but we'll give them to you hopefully, so you'll be able to study them further. But Exodus chapter 2. Um, this is where Miriam, or rather, Egypt and Pharaoh, and they're um, killing the babies. And of course, you have Jochebed here, which is Moses' mother, hides Moses in this little, I guess, basket, and she puts him in the river. But it's interesting. Ryan, let's go over there. You want to read? Let me get this verse here. Let's look at verse number 4. Look at verse number
Okay.
4. If you'll read verse 4, and let's go down to go to verse number 7.
Okay. Dan and Naphtali, Gad and Asher.
Exodus
Oh,
2. Sorry.
Exodus.
Yep, Exodus.
Sorry, my
What
bad.
did I? No, you're fine. Exodus 2.
Exodus 2. Okay.
Yeah, Exodus 2 4.
And his sister stood afar off to wit what would be done to him, and the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river. And her maidens walked along by the riverside, and when she saw the ark among the flags, and sent her maid to fetch it. And when she had opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the babe wept. And she had compassion on him, and said, This is the one of the Hebrews' children. Then said it. Then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, Shall I go and call to thee a nurse of the Hebrew woman, that she may nurse the child for thee?
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, Pharaoh's daughter, verse 8, she says, "Go." And so what's interesting about this passage is that siblings watch out for each other. That's kind of our first point. Miriam kind of watched over her brother. Siblings are obviously some of each other's greatest protectors, right?
Yeah.
Ryan, what do you think are maybe some situations that siblings have to, or should are going to maybe protect one another? What would you say?
Um, they maybe protect them outside from
Okay.
influences, outside
Yeah.
influences. Maybe they protect each other from
Yeah.
maybe just like friends, maybe. Yeah,
Absolutely.
like outside influences. Yeah.
Yeah. And in some situations, not wasn't our case, but there are some family situations where siblings sometimes have to protect each other from or protect parents or
Mm-hmm.
their siblings from parents. When you have some parents who don't do what God would have them to do, and so yeah, absolutely, they're protectors, and so we learn number one that you want to be a faithful sibling, you're going to be a good protector. Miriam was a good protector. Moses,
Mm-hmm.
he was just a baby, and so his sister watched over him, and things like that. I have here in my notes this thought: siblings should be concerned with their siblings' welfare. Cain had asked God, "Am I my brother's keeper?" Genesis 4 verse 9. And what would we say to that? Am I my brother's keeper? Am I my sibling's keeper?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
that's right.
Yes,
That's right.
absolutely.
Yeah. And so when we think about this, right, older siblings, they guide the younger siblings. They may watch out for them. And, and that's vice versa too, right?
Yeah.
Ryan, you're the youngest, and it doesn't mean that you don't watch out for your older siblings, right? You're still care
Oh,
for them and compassion, have compassion and things like that.
absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. And so, yeah, someone asked this question: how many brothers would be kept from moral injury and peril if they were thus guarded by a loving sister? I like that thought. And obviously not just located to a sister, but obviously there are other situations. Ryan, you mentioned bowling, right? And
Yeah.
there's some, or not you didn't mention bowling, but you mentioned friends, and sometimes there are friends that aren't nice to your siblings, right? You be a faithful sibling, you'll stand up for them, right? And you'll be their
Yeah.
protector.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. They
Now,
also watch each other's
go ahead.
back. They also watch each other's back too.
That's right.
Somebody's talking bad about them, they stand up, or at least they should. Or yeah, it is commanded to stand up, or we
Yeah,
should
that's
stand
right.
up for each other.
That's
Yeah.
right. Absolutely. Um, and think about even more. I want to say more importantly, but well, it has to do with sin. If a sibling is in sin, siblings ought to always also as well go up to them
Hmm.
and say, hey, you need to obviously stop that. So, what does it mean to be a faithful sibling? Number one is to watch out for them, like Miriam. Miriam watched out for Moses. It would do you good if you're a sibling to watch out for your siblings, right? I think
Absolutely.
that's a good principle. All right, let's talk about
Yeah.
number two. Ryan, what would you say number two? What does it mean to be a faithful sibling?
Well, secondly, it
Number
means
two.
to not be envy of each other,
That's
to
right.
not be envy
Now,
of siblings.
that's right. That's right. Ryan, would you read Proverbs 14? Proverbs 14, we'll go to verse number 30. Proverbs 14, verse number 30. And Ryan, you're going to read that, if you will, and I'm going to read Job 5 and verse 2. Um, what does the Proverbs writer say about envy?
Proverbs 14:30. A sound heart is the light of the flesh, but envy the rottenness of the bones.
Yeah, envy is a rottenness to the bones, especially with sibling relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
Siblings, who, if you're envious of, I want to be like him. It's not that it's wrong to say I want to be like my sibling, but it is wrong to have this envy. Let me read Job verse 5 verse 2. Not only does it rot the bones, but for wrath kills the foolish man, and envy slays the silly one. Envy is a killer, and
Mm-hmm.
and and so, envious of a personality or a trait or a work, and envy is simply just this: I want what he has or she has, and I don't care, or rather, I want them to fail, and it's just this bad situation, and it hurts, right? It hurts.
Yeah.
And so let's think about Genesis chapter 4. Now, again, we're not going to be able to read this whole passage, but Ryan, can you just maybe briefly? I think you know this, maybe without having to read all of it, but Genesis 4 verses 1 through about verse 8. What's going on here with Cain and Abel?
Well, God commands them to give a sacrifice to him,
Hmm.
and Abel gives his firstling of the flock, his best,
That's right.
his best, and Cain gives his his blessings from the ground. He gives fruit. vegetables and that sort of stuff. And God is not pleased with Cain's sacrifice, and He is
Hmm.
pleased with Abel's sacrifice because Abel
That's right.
gave his first, his better, his best. So I think that
Absolutely. And then
I think
what what happened with Cain? What did he was kind of what? He's
envy,
kind of
the
envious,
envy of
right?
Abel's
He's kind of
sacrifice.
that's right. And yeah, no, you explained that perfectly. Um, yeah, absolutely. Allow me to read, if you will. You don't all have to turn it, but 1 John 3, verse 12 says, "Not as Cain, who was of that wicked one, he slew his brother. Why'd he kill him?" Now, the word slew there is interesting. If you like Greek words, let me just say this because I think this is cool. Someone observed that it might have the connotation of maybe a butchering, and maybe he killed him with the knife. Maybe he slit his throat. I don't know.
Mm,
You have pictures of him doing the boulder, and he's hitting his brother on
yeah.
the head. I don't know how he killed him, but he did. Why did he do it? Because his own works were evil, his brother's righteous. I don't like my brother's righteous works. And this is this envy idea. How many siblings are envy of their siblings' success? They gossip, maybe they hurtful talk. They try to tear them down.
Hmm.
Not what they ought to be doing. Ryan, let's ask this question: why does envy kill? Why does Cain killed his brother, but envy kills? How does that happen? How does
Causes
envy kill?
causes competition between siblings. Causes that
That's
rivalry,
right.
rivalry. Um,
Mm-hmm.
causes pride,
Rivalry.
rivalry. Yeah. Also causes pride. It causes pride from to the siblings, and then lastly, it causes one to put his siblings down for the good he does. So it makes him feel better
Mm.
about putting his sibling down. Makes him feel better of talking bad about his sibling, and it makes him feel more better than his sibling.
Yeah, yeah, try himself. What's the idea with gossip or bullying? Right, bullies
Hmm.
to make other people feel bad. What does it do to their self-esteem? It builds them up. But envy kills. Envy kills the envious and the envied. Right, that's important. Not only kills and we say kills. We're using that obviously. There's that figurative aspect there, but it not only kills the person being envied, but also the one who is envying, right?
Hmm.
And I think that's something to put in importance. Um, Allow me, if you will, just to give you this passage, Numbers 12. Envy never turns out well for siblings. It seemed like Miriam and Aaron were envious. And what happened to Miriam? She turned
Well, she
leper,
got
right? It was
yeah,
leprosy.
struck with leprosy.
What you? Yeah,
She got
absolutely,
struck with leprosy. Yes.
absolutely. That's right. And so siblings differences should not be a cause for envy. But what's the other word? Unity, right? Unity, the other
Mhm.
word that ends with Y. Um, you think about a family, there's so many differences with family. Each one has a different part. A family is like a puzzle. You do your part, I do my part. We all do these different parts. And they all fit together. But if you didn't have one piece of the puzzle, and I want to be like him, and I want to be like her, she wants to be like, and then the puzzle doesn't work, right? Each person has a part to play. But you want to be a faithful sibling. You won't be envious, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Going back to the puzzle thing, if you don't
Hmm.
have if you're not in like if you're against each other, it's not complete. The puzzle's not complete. It won't fit. It won't look right because they won't. They're not in their assigned places, or they're not in the right places where they're supposed to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. No. Perfect point. Um, so, what can we do? We'll kind of go on to our third point in just a second, but don't become envious of your sibling, obviously. But instead, what should we do? Instead, what do you think the alternative is, Ryan?
Let their good
Instead of
works
being
encourage
envious,
them.
what should we do?
We should let their good works
Yeah.
encourage
How
them
how can we do that?
by
Yeah. Absolutely.
yeah.
What do you think?
I think we can.
Let's just think about it. Go ahead. Sorry.
I think we can just accept that maybe they do good works and just be happy for them.
Yeah.
To just be
Absolutely.
happy that they're doing righteousness. To be happy that they're being godly. That they're following God's
Yeah.
word.
And you can learn, right? You can learn. Now we're not talking just about younger to older. Older definitely can learn from younger as well. Um, especially you get that older there. But don't be envious. Learn from them. Appreciate them, as you just said. Be happy for them. Appreciate that they're godly. That's a good point. All right, let's talk about number 3. This kind of brings us to Genesis chapter 50. Genesis 50. Interestingly, this is an account where Joseph, he's with his brothers. Sometimes siblings can be the toughest perpetrators of each other. Ryan, when we were little, I'm sure there was some times where we had some scuffles, right?
Yeah.
It happens with siblings. We're
Yeah.
perfect now. We're both perfect. No wrong there. I'm kidding. No, but sometimes siblings can be there's that butting of heads. Someone said though that siblings are the people who know us best and love us anyway. That does not
Mm-hmm.
mean though that they just overpass wrongdoing. There obviously needs to be repentance and apologizing. But siblings can forgive each other. Ryan, just very briefly, we don't have time to do this, but Genesis 37. Can you just maybe describe what did the brothers do to Joseph?
They threw him in a pit because they were jealous of
What
him.
did the brothers do?
They were
That's right.
jealous of him, so they
Yeah,
threw him in a pit. They were
that's right.
they were jealous that his
Absolutely.
father was treating him different than them.
Well, I mean, think about what did he have? Remember, he had that coat, right? That coat of many
Mhm.
colors,
So,
and yeah, coat of many colors, and um, and then yeah, you're right. They threw him in that pit, and not only that, what happened after that? They sold him to the Ishmaelites, right? And then he was taken to Egypt, and it was a bad situation, right? Um, go ahead.
I think of all the envy what it can do to people. It
Hmm.
can break apart families too.
Yeah,
Envy can break apart the relationship of siblings also.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, think about what they did, right? And I would encourage everyone here to do this. But Genesis 37, you can go through at the text and find all the different sins that they went through. And I encourage you, as we always do, to Bible mark them. But some think that siblings' acts are unforgivable. I can't believe you did that to me. But Ryan, did Joseph do that?
Now, Joseph, think how quick
No,
he
he didn't.
was quick to forgive. Think how
Well,
the brother thought
I mean,
Joseph.
go ahead. Yeah.
Think how think how the brothers thought Joseph was gonna treat him after, and then after that happened, and Joseph quickly forgave.
Right. It took him 13 years to go through
Yeah.
that. Right. They didn't see each other for probably about 13 years. So it took a while, but I mean, when they get to Egypt, right? And then they go through all that process, right? And with the gold, with the silver cup and things like that. And then what does Joseph do? He says, "I'm your brother." But let's read
Hmm.
Genesis 50, and so let's go to verse number. Uh, Look at verse 17. Ryan, you want to read that?
Yeah. So shall ye say unto Joseph, Forgive, I pray thee now, the trespass of thy brethren and their sin, for they did unto thee evil. And now we pray thee, forgive the trespass of the servants of the God of thy father. And Joseph wept when they spake unto him.
Yeah. Can you read verses 18 through 21 too? Let's do that.
And his brethren also went and fell down before his face. And they said, Behold, we be thy servants. And Joseph said unto them, Fear not, For I for am I in the place of God? But as for you, ye thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good, to bring to pass, as it is this day, to save much people alive. And he said 21 too.
Yeah.
Okay. Now therefore fear ye not, I will nourish you and your little ones, and he comforted them and spake kindly unto them.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, so this is after. I mean, think about all the things, right? He was thrown in a pit. They were going to kill him, right? And then
Hmm.
Reuben stepped in and said, "Hey, no, let's not do that." And then they sold him to Egypt. He's there for 13 years in this land. I think it is about 13 years, if I remember correctly, or at least some time. And then they come years later, and you imagine what Joseph. I mean, the normal man, the worldly man, would say, "No, kill him, right? Kill him." But not Joseph. And he forgave them, and he knew that God obviously used their bad actions for His good, right?
Yeah.
And that's what He did. So let's think about this. Love. I'm going to read just very briefly Proverbs 10. Look at Proverbs 10 and verse 12. It says, "Hatred stirs up strifes, but love covers all sins." Now, it's not this this I don't even know how to describe this love that just in a sense puts sin under the rug. No, it covers sins. There's a difference from covering sin and putting it under the rug. Putting it under the rug doesn't really cover sins.
Doesn't clear
Uh,
it.
it, that's right. Hey, good word. Absolutely, it doesn't clear it. It's still there. It didn't but to cover something, love does that. And so siblings today, upon repentance and reconciliation, obviously there should be forgiveness, right? Ryan, when a sibling comes to another sibling and they apologize, what should that sibling that was hurt do?
I forgive. I forgive you.
That's right. Hmm.
They should forgive
Absolutely.
them. They should forgive them and forget. That's
Yeah.
what we're
No,
supposed to do as Christians.
that's right. We need to put it in the past, right? I've illustrated it like this before, not original with me, but forgiveness is not, and this is what some people do, right? They bury the hatchet with the handle still sticking up in the over the ground. No, we bury the whole hatchet. And so, yeah, siblings need to forgive each other. So I learned number 3, right? So if I want to be a faithful sibling, I got to forgive. Sometimes siblings are just going to do, we're going to get into fights, and there's going to be some things that someone says, but upon repentance and apologizing, there should be forgiveness, right? Not holding a grudge forever, right? Absolutely. All right, so that's number 3, Ryan. So we've talked a lot already, right? We talked about number 1 means they'll watch over each other, like Miriam. Means that they're not going to be envious, like Cain. They're not going to be unforgiving. They'll forgive, like Joseph. Ryan, what would you say number 4 is?
Means that they will share a close bond with one another.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, yeah. Um,
Siblings are the closest people to a person. At least they should be growing up.
yeah, absolutely. Um, some siblings, Ryan, you're what? You're 9. I gotta think here. 9, 10 years younger than me. So we got to obviously, we were in the house together for about,
Yeah.
I don't even know, I'm not gonna try to count, but some siblings don't get that privilege of, some maybe you're just born like 15, 20 years later, and it's not that close relationship, but some do, and that's a blessing to have that. And that's not saying that if you didn't have that, that's not a blessing or right. No. We're just saying that siblings, and it can even happen, even later in life too, is that siblings spend time with one another, and when they do that, right, they share a close bond, and they should. Ryan, you want to read Proverbs 20, or I'm sorry, Proverbs 18 and verse 24. Proverbs 18:24. What does that say?
Right. Proverbs 18:24. 18:24. A man that hath friends must show himself friendly, and there is a friend that sticketh closer than a brother.
That's right. A friend that sticks closer than a brother. Now, if the friend sticks closer than a brother, that implies that the brother is maybe close. I mean, perhaps, right? There's maybe a close bond there. So who are we going to use to illustrate this, Ryan? Who are we going to? We focus on a Bible character for each one. Who are we using for this one?
I think David and Jonathan.
Yeah. Now,
David
were
and
they
John.
brothers?
No, they were not brothers. They were closest. They were the closest friends, probably, as you can read in the Bible. One of the closest friends I think about. at least in the Bible, they had each other's back. I
Absolutely.
mean, you think of who Jonathan was. He was the king. He was the person who was trying to kill David's son.
Saul was. That's right. Yeah,
Well,
absolutely. You're right.
Jonathan was Saul's son, but
Absolutely.
he was the son of Saul who was trying to kill David.
Mm.
So you think about that and how awesome that is that he had his David's back, even though his father was trying to kill him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean these brothers aren't. I say brothers, but they were like brother. I mean, 1 Samuel 18:3 says David loved him as his own soul. They were knit. I think one verse says that their souls were knit together, right? Meaning that they had this bond that was close. And siblings, need to have that bond, right? At least they should try to. There's that closeness there that should be there, right? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Ryan, so you mentioned Saul. Uh, you mentioned Saul wanted to kill Jonathan, right? Or I'm sorry, David. And Jonathan, he even stood up to his own dad, right? He loved David, and he wanted to protect him, right? 1 Samuel 20 verses 11 through 17 mentions this thought about, with, I believe it is with if I remember correctly, his arrows, shooting the arrows and things like that. But I think it's interesting. We didn't read this, but in Genesis chapter 4 with Cain, it was stated of Cain that, and some older, like some manuscripts, I think it is, if I remember correctly, say that Cain told Abel, let's go out into the field, right? Abel, and then what did he do? He killed him. But here, Jonathan asked Cain or David to come out to the field, but it was for his protection. And so I thought that was just an interesting thought.
Yeah.
So yeah, siblings share a close relationship, right, Ryan? They share a
Yeah,
close relationship with each other.
absolutely.
And
It is
so
important.
sorry, go ahead.
It's important to have a sibling relationship again.
Yeah. So what are some ways that you think of, just maybe practical, just kind of just that come to your mind very briefly? What are some ways that siblings can maybe cultivate that relationship and kind of make it better?
They treat each other better than a friend.
Hmm.
They treat each other like a friend, but better.
Yeah.
Also, the personalities may not click, but then they can share a special bond.
So what are some things that's great. What are some things that you do maybe just practically? Like what do you do? What do you think a sibling? What are some suggestions if someone were to come up to you and say, Ryan, I want to get closer to my sibling? What are some of the things that you think that would be good to do that?
We just hang out with them, maybe do the
Yeah.
things what they want to do.
Hmm.
Maybe just talk to them about different stuff here and there. Maybe ask them different questions. Ask if they want to have Bible study. Maybe just as a sibling Bible study.
Good.
Maybe just just talk to them, hang out with them. I think is one of the things I think in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned that while personalities may not click, that is true. Some siblings just, the personalities are just different, but it doesn't mean that they can't be some of the best of
Yeah,
friends, right? They can't
absolutely.
share that. I'm sure David and Jonathan, there were. I mean, obviously they're two different people. They're not going to be perfectly the same, but and that's a point in the church is that personalities may not click in the church. Your personality might not click with mine, and mine vice versa, or mine for you. But it doesn't mean we can't love each other and have a special bond with one another. And Ryan, those practical ways are great. Right? Spending time with one another and getting to know each other better is a faithful sibling and really treating each other right. If you cannot be close with the people that you see on a regular basis, and for siblings, I mean, if you're living in the house with one another, you're seeing each other every day, right?
Yeah.
Then how can and if you're not nice to them, if you're not kind to them, how can you be close to people that you don't see on a regular basis? Allow me to read, or actually, Ryan, you want to read that? 1 John 4, look at verse number 20. 1 John 4 and verse number 20. John says something kind of along this line here about just brotherly love and loving God. But notice what he says. 1 John 4 and verse number 20.
Okay. If a man say, I love God, and hateth his brother, he is a liar. For he that loveth not his brother, whom he hath seen, how can we love God, whom he hath not seen?
Yeah. If I can't love my, now here is the spiritual brother here, but if I can't love my physical brother and be nice to him, how can I, and I see him every day. How am I going to expect, how should I, be nice to someone I don't see on a regular basis? And so I think that's an important principle, right, to lay out. So absolutely, that fourth point is a good thought. Ryan, do you have any more thoughts before we go on to point 5?
Not that I can think of.
All right, so let's go to point number 5. It means, what does it mean to be a faithful sibling? Number 5 is it means that they will not try to undermine them. Not going to try to undermine them. Genesis 25, verses 39 through 34 is the account of Esau. Esau came in from the field. Jacob was making a pot of stew. And what did Esau want? He wanted the stew. And what did Jacob say? I want the birthright. And so Esau said, no, I don't know about that. I don't know if he saw it or not. Text just, I don't know if he took time to think about it, but it's interesting though, is that some siblings, like maybe Jacob, maybe try to undermine them and try to get something from them. Jacob's name, his name means to defraud, to deceive, to supplant, overthrow a person by tripping up his heels, Adam Clark said. And interestingly, it was Esau that said this in Genesis 27:36. He said this: "Is not he rightly called Jacob?" Ryan, do you remember when Jacob went into Esau and he or not into Esau? He went into Isaac with Isaac and he stole the blessing. And this is after the blessing. Esau says this: "Is not he rightly called Jacob? For he hath supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, number 1, and behold, now he has taken away my blessing." So instead of seeking their best, some seek their siblings' worst. Ryan, is deceit sinful?
Absolutely.
Is it a sin to be deceitful? Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is a sin, right? And Mark 7, let's read that. Ryan, you want to go ahead and read that? Mark 7 in verse 22. Mark 7:22. If you want to be a faithful sibling, right, we're not going to try to deceive them or try to hurt them in any way. I think that's an important thought to think about. But Mark 7:22. Actually, start at verse 20. Do 20 through 22.
All right. And he said, That which cometh out of the man, that defileth the man. For from within, out of the heart of men, proceed evil thoughts, adulteries, fornications, murders, thefts, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lasciviousness, an evil lie, blasphemy, pride, foolishness. All these things come from within and defile the man.
Yeah, verse 22, deceit. Deceit comes from within. And so, Jacob, he was a deceiver. And he stole his brother's birthright and his blessing. But although Jacob was smart, was he spiritual at this point? He kind of had a kind of some problems there, right? And so, there were two encounters here. But Jacob only thought about himself. Ryan, how can siblings maybe deceive one another? What are some ways maybe that siblings deceive one another? Younger siblings can maybe do it. Older siblings can do it. But how do siblings deceive one another?
Lie.
What are maybe some just practical ways?
They could lie to each other.
Lie to one another.
Lie to one another. They could.
Absolutely.
They could. They could. They could lie to one another. They could
blame one another. What about blaming one another?
Blame one another.
Maybe blame for something.
Another, they could. Yeah. They could tell them what. Or yeah, they could blame one another. They could blame them for doing something what they did.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of taking the blame for themselves, they would blame their other sibling to get them in trouble.
Yeah.
Maybe they
Yeah.
would
There's a lot of
lie. They would lie about You could lie about lying to your parents about if the sibling did something which they didn't, so you
Mhm.
couldn't get in trouble. All those things could go with
Yeah,
that.
exaggerating. Well, he hit me when he just did it on accident, right?
Hmm.
Or she said this when she really didn't. I shouldn't smile about that, but just those things that siblings will say. I was thinking, you kind of have the
Yeah.
little action, but anyway, no, you're right. Those are some things that siblings sometimes do, and they ought not to do that. It means that they're not going to try to undermine them or deceive them or blame them for things that they didn't do, or or lie. Right? You mentioned lying earlier. That's not good. So um, Jacob, he only thought about himself. And so you want to be a faithful sibling. We'll seek to do that, to do them good, right? Not to evil. I don't have this on the list, but let me read, and we can make application for the church, or obviously physical siblings. But Galatians 5:13 says this: "For brethren, you've been called not unto liberty. Only use not liberty for an occasion to the flesh, but by love serve one another." Verse 14: "For all the law is fulfilled in one word, even this: Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself." Verse 15. Here it is: "But if you bite and devour one another, take heed that you be not consumed of one another." Right? Siblings aren't to be spiritual cannibals. We're not to be eating one another, but we do that, right? We do this in the church, and we just tear each other apart, and that obviously is not okay, right? And physical siblings, this is the same way. So you want to be a physical sibling, help them, right, instead of hurt them. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, so that's number 5. What does it mean to be a sibling, a faithful sibling? Don't undermine them. Ryan, what is, and this will be our last point for tonight, or as you're watching this, what does it mean to be a faithful sibling? What's our last point for tonight? What do you think it means?
They will seek to be at peace with one
That's right.
another.
That's right. Let's go over to Genesis 13. Genesis 13, and we'll read verse number 7. As we're turning there, think about, some siblings live in close quarters. Ryan, me and you, I don't think we had to share a room, did we?
No, not that I can remember.
I don't think we did.
I think we did.
Uh, I don't. I don't. Yeah, I don't think we did. Some siblings though have to. Some siblings have to share a playroom or a small house. Maybe it's very small, and confined areas sometimes produce anxiety. It's normal to need space, but it's not normal to fight and grow angry. Fighting siblings obviously never produce good things. But Ryan, what's going on in Genesis 13? Let me explain verses 1 through 5. 1 through 5, Abraham, he leaves Egypt, and Lot's with them, and they're going to a land. And verse 5, Lot also went with Abraham and had flocks and herds and tents. And so, Ryan, look at verses 6 through 8. And what kind of, help us understand what's going on. Let's start verse 6 through 8.
Yeah. And the land was not able to bear them that they might dwell together, for their substance was great, so that they could not dwell together. And there was a strife between the herdmen of Abram's cattle and the herdmen of Lot's cattle. And the Canaanite and the Perizzites dwelled, dwelled then in the land. And Abram said unto Lot, Let there be no strife, I pray thee, between me and thee, between my herdmen and thy herdmen, for we be brethren.
Yeah, so what's going on here? Explain that to us
Well,
a little bit.
Abram and Lot's herdsmen are getting into a strife,
Yeah,
and Abraham basically says, "Stop." he
that's right.
They were fighting about. Does it say that what they were fighting about? I don't know if it
They're
does,
fighting
but
about kind of the just, it was like this
cattle.
confined, like verse number 6. Land was not able to bear them that they might dwell together. Their substance, they couldn't dwell together. So it's like this tight space, and you can imagine that as like this, you know, and there's strife, absolutely. And what you mentioned with Abraham, right? The fighting caused Abraham to get involved, and he said this. Abraham said unto Lot, Let there be no strife, I pray thee, between me and thee, and between my herdmen. I love this. He says, For we be what? Brethren.
Brethren.
We're brethren. We're brethren. We don't need to fight about this. Right? Abraham knew this fighting. And so as we kind of apply this to siblings, right? Siblings, there shouldn't be this fighting, right? Although sometimes they may share the room, or they have to share a playroom, or share their toys or whatever. There shouldn't be fighting, right? Instead, there should be peace. So if you want to be a faithful sibling, you'll choose peace over strife. Um, and this can cause harm. Even we're not just talking about those in the house, and even past. When people become adults, there's still this. Some people can sometimes just fight, right? And Abraham says, no, 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 no. No fighting. We're brethren here, and so that's how it should be. Some
He knew
siblings
what
fight. Go ahead.
he knew what the fighting would cause. What would
Absolutely.
happen if they
Yeah,
fought?
absolutely. Yeah. Um, and it didn't bring about it. This isn't going to be profitable, right? And of course, fighting with your siblings isn't either. But some siblings fight over things, and I've no doubt probably have done this before. Is siblings fight over things sometimes that are just useless, right? Abraham understood. All right, hey, this is it, right? It's not a good time to argue. Arguing obviously over matters that are pointless is not good, and and so we've got to make sure that we overcome that. So Ryan, as we kind of look at this thought, siblings should choose strife or peace over strife. How can they do that? What do you think are some ways that maybe siblings can do that? How
They,
what do you think are some ways?
I think they can maybe share, or they could maybe talk it out, talk about the problems, what they're having,
Mm-hmm.
maybe talk to each other, what's going on, what is the situation, how can we
Yeah,
fix it, how can we how can we get along again, how can we stop fighting. They could talk about the problem.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, no, you're right. So many, I mean, how many problems would be solved if they just talked, if people just talked about them? Not talked uh, about them, but talk to someone, or to talk to the person you have a problem with, is what I'm getting
Yeah.
at. And siblings need to do that, right? You have a problem, with your brother or your sister. Say, hey, I didn't like how you did that to me today. I don't like what word you said to me today. And hopefully they're, oh, I'm sorry, and hopefully that. But yeah, so how can they do it? Absolutely, they can understand the beauty of unity. Psalm 133 and verse number 1 says, "Behold, how good and pleasant it is for brethren to dwell in unity." And so, Ryan, let's just ask this question: is it more enjoyable to be at peace or to be at strife with your sibling?
Peace. Peace for
Peace, right?
sure.
Absolutely. Way better to do that. Think
Yes.
about this as well. Were you going to say something?
I was just I think another one is they could yield to each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Abraham had to Lot to choose the land he wanted. He
Yeah.
put Lot before himself. He
Absolutely.
thought of Lot before of himself. He gave Lot the first chance. So I think that yielding is very
Mm-hmm.
important too.
Yeah, no, you're perfectly right. It's better to take the hit. Jesus says, if he smites you on your right, is it right cheek? I don't know, right or left, turn to the other also, right? And so obviously it's not going and looking for trouble. Here, hit me on my cheek. No, it's yielding. Absolutely, great point. There was a little boy and a little girl that were riding a mechanical horse in a shopping center. The little boy who was riding in front turned to the girl and said, "If one of us would get off, there'd be more room for me." Uh, well, that's not yielding. As Ryan mentioned, you mentioned earlier, Genesis 13:9 is that Abraham said, "Lot, you choose," not "I'll choose first," and that no is yielding. And I think it's important too to take some time alone. If there is some strife, Abraham and Lot, there had to be this separation, right? Sometimes just things don't. I mean, sometimes we just need space, and that is, good for all situations. It's wise to, Ryan. I don't. Did you mention this? Maybe not. But it's wise to take a breather. just to breathe and just kind of take some time, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Another person who had to do this or people, Acts 15 verses 36 through 40, with Barnabas and Paul, they had to do that, and it kind of they had to separate. The contention was so sharp. And so, what does it mean to be a faithful sibling? Well, number 6 is it means that they will seek to be at peace, right? They'll seek to strive for peace and not be selfish. Right? So those are 6 ways that we can do to be a faithful sibling. Ryan, before we kind of wrap up tonight, do you have any extra thoughts about anything we've talked about?
I think being a faithful sibling means just to be right with follow God's word,
Mm-hmm.
to be at peace, just like we talked about, with one another, to uplift
Mm-hmm.
one another, to encourage one another, to lean on one another, and to talk to each other. So I think a
Absolutely great.
faithful sibling relationship is really important.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be, I mean, God, obviously created the family, and He knew that there would be siblings. So He wants us to be faithful. Siblings are obviously important to family, and these principles, Ryan, I think you would agree with this too, is they don't just apply to inside the home, but outside the home when siblings have their own families, right? It's not that, well, I don't want to be nice to you anymore because we're not under mom and dad. No, these are biblical principles that still apply to everyone today. And so the Hebrews writer in Hebrews 13:1 had the church in mind. He had brotherly love. But he says this, let brotherly love continue. Now, that obviously is applicable to members of the family as well. And so it should be practiced with that. So what does it mean to be a faithful sibling? All the things we talked about, it's been great. And so hopefully this has been helpful to you, Ryan. So
Absolutely.
thankful to have you on.
Thank
Appreciate
you
your
for that.
willingness to be on. Yeah, thank you for joining. We're going to have Ryan on again sometime in the future if you would like. But I appreciate him tonight. What does it mean to be a faithful sibling? We would encourage you to like or subscribe to this YouTube channel, and so we would encourage you to reach out with us if you have any questions. We encourage you also to come see us here at Piedmont. We're at 105 Memorial Drive, Piedmont, Alabama, 36272. And we would love to be able to answer any questions, or you can come to worship. We have Bible class at 9:30, worship at 10:30, worship at 5 p.m., and Wednesdays, Bible class at 7 p.m. And so next time, not next week, next time, our episode will be entitled, What Does It Mean to Be a Faithful Preacher? And so, Lord willing, we'll have another guest on. But so thankful to have Ryan on this week. He did such a great job, and always thankful for him. And so we encourage you to have a good night. I hope this has been beneficial. And always remember to keep on keeping on.